Bring out your beauty with sun care inspired by Hawaii with Hawaiian Tropic Sunscreen. Just a whiff of their signature tropical scents like papaya and passion fruit, and you're transported to your happy place. Invigorate your everyday beauty routine with Hawaiian Tropic. Ultra weightless and moisturizing sun protection for a healthy glow. Quality ingredients that nourish and protect your skin. And their lotions and mists are reef-friendly and cruelty-free. Bring out your beauty with Hawaiian Tropic Sunscreen. Shop now at CVS.com.
If you need business communications, use Vonage. They've got unified communications, contact centers, and communications APIs that will make your life complete, communication-wise. But that's it. Vonage is great at all those. They're not great at making extremely entertaining yet informative podcasts that make you feel smarter and more inspired, but you know what? That's okay. They don't need to be the best at absolutely everything. They're fine with just being the absolute best at business communications. Vonage. Now we're talking.
This is the WellsCast with Wells Adams, an iHeartRadio podcast.
Yeah, I should have been voicing that intro. Nah, shout out to Tori, producer Tori, for voicing that intro and for all that you do. I was joking around with my other producer, Amy, and I was like, let's just change the name of the show to So You Were on the Masked Singer cast, because that's what this is now. See, that was my audition for the next season of The Masked Singer. I was thinking about it like I would never go on The Masked Singer because I can't sing. But actually, other people that suck have gone on the show, so maybe I can. But I would want to be in control of my outfit. And do you remember the movie Dodgeball with Vince Vaughn? Do you remember the scene where Vince Vaughn is playing dodgeball for the first time competitively? The average Joe's uniforms come in, but they get the wrong uniforms. And so they all wear dominatrix uniforms. That's what I would want to be. I'd want to be the submissive and just really freak out Ken Jeong. Or maybe he'd be turned on. I don't know what would happen. I would sing, but then someone would come and zip the mouth closed, and then I couldn't sing, you know? Very excited about today's episode. I was telling my fiance, Sarah, who was going to be on, she was like, shut up. I had a huge crush on him back in the day, which makes total sense. I'm just glad he's married. So, like, that's just not something I don't have to worry about, you know? On today, and by the way, thank God for The Masked Singer, because it's getting me so many cool freaking artists on this show. Today, we're going to have a guy who broke into Hollywood in the late 90s. He was on a little show called All My Children. Do you remember it? Yeah, you do. His first three albums, Beautiful Soul, Right Where You Want Me, and Departure, consecutively bowed in the top 15 of the Billboard Top 200 with singles Beautiful Soul, Minted Gold, and Leavin' certified platinum, bro. His collaborations span from T-Pain's Body Language to Ludacris' How Do You Sleep? Along the way, he performed in arenas alongside, New Kids on the Block and the Backstreet Boys, in addition to packing global headlining tours and hosting shows for both George W. Bush and Barack Obama. My boy is bipartisan, yo. A new single out right now called Yours. While he's been in quarantine, he's been making hilarious quarantine couple skits on Insta with his fiancée, Katie. He's a part of Fox's new show, Celebrity Watch Party, and he was the turtle. I like turtles. Turtle, 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 turtle. On The Masked Singer. Everyone thought that Hunter Hayes, who was on a couple weeks ago, that he was the turtle. No. He was the astronaut. Today's guest is a turtle. So sit back and relax. And ladies out there, if you were a child of the 90s, get ready to be very excited. Because on the WellsCast today, we have the multi-talented Jesse McCartney. You don't want to miss it.
Does finding a job feel like the hardest job ever? With LinkedIn Learning, you can take a course like 10 Ways to Stay Motivated While Job Hunting. One way is to create a vision board. It'll be there for you, reminding you why you're looking and what's most important. Keep learning to land your next job. Get this course and thousands more taught by industry experts free for 1 month at linkedinlearning.com/trial. LinkedIn Learning. We're in it together.
Vonage has everything you could ever want in life. As long as what you want in life are unified communications that organize all your texts, emails, and voice calls onto one platform, contact centers that integrate seamlessly with Salesforce, and APIs that help developers build communications into their apps. But that's it. Those are the things that Vonage is great at. They're not great at baking delicious cakes, doing sweet backflips, or making extremely entertaining yet informative podcasts that make you feel smarter and more inspired. None of those are really their thing. But you know what? That's okay. They don't need to be the best at absolutely everything. They're fine with humbly being the absolute best at business communications. Vonage, now we're talking.
All right, on the WellsCast now, I have Jesse McCartney. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Wells, how are you?
I mean, I guess as good as you can do under these circumstances.
Sure, of course. What can you do, right? So far, we're safe and sound. We have a roof over our head, so we're very grateful in that regard. But yes, it is a difficult time for, I think, a lot of people. So we're trying to make the best of it.
I had Hunter Hayes on the show a couple weeks ago, and he was saying that everyone thought that he was the turtle. But in fact, no, sir, you are the turtle on The Masked Singer. Did you enjoy your time singing in front of a bunch of people when they didn't know who you were?
Yes, I did. It was a real thrill. Just getting up there every single night. It was fun to watch people try to figure it out, especially in the early stages of the filming of that show, because the first few episodes before it aired were filmed. So before anyone could really be on the internet trolling or guessing, people were genuinely trying to figure it out live, which was very exciting. And then I think once the first few episodes aired, I think the diehard fans started putting it together pretty quickly, just based on my physicality and such on stage, that the people in the audience were like starting to scream out my name, and people would have to say, okay, all right, keep it to yourself, keep your guesses to yourself. But it was really fun.
Like I said, we had Hunter on, Brett Michaels, Paul Schaefer, a bunch of people who are actually singers on the show that were also part of The Masked Singer. And then we've had a bunch of people that weren't actually singers. You're used to getting on stage and you're used to performing in front of a bunch of people. What's more fun? Is it more fun to be kind of like shrouded in mystery performing for people? Or is it more awesome to like have everyone know who the hell they're looking at?
It's not that it's awesome to have them know who they're looking at. It's just awesome to not be wearing an extra 40 pounds of material on your back. So while some artists, I'm sure, were loving being disguised because maybe they're not professional performers and it gave them a little bit of a barrier. In my case, I was dying to rip that thing off because it was just impeding on my ability and being able to sing clearly and dance well. I love being on stage. So for me, it was actually more of a distraction in terms of my performing.
How much does that thing smell inside?
You actually be surprised how well built those things are. They ventilate. They have like ventilation systems in some of them where they have like fans going and they like are breathing. So actually not too bad. And they're really good at disinfecting and, Febrezing them. But, when you're in it for a couple hours at a time, especially when the lights in the studio have been on all night, it gets really hot. But to me, I can take the heat. That wasn't really what bothered me. It was the air, the oxygen. I actually felt like because of the mask, they have teeny baby little breathing holes, but getting a full breath is just not possible in that mask, which makes it all the more challenging when you're going to reach for a big note.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing that I didn't like about the costume.
Who is your favorite judge and who is your least favorite judge?
Oh, no, I don't have a least favorite. They all fit they all play their role so perfectly. They each bring, their own sort of special thing to the show. Robin Thicke is like, he's first of all, he's definitely my favorite as an artist because I grew up listening to his music. He made such an impact on me vocally and musically. So I always looked up to Robin. So that was such a big bucket list check every week to be able to sing in front of him was just so cool. But they were all great, man. Ken could not stop making jokes. Jenny was a sniper when it came to guessing who the person was. She was always right. And Nicole just always had a way of relating to every artist. She was very relatable when she would speak. So they're all incredible. There wasn't one person I didn't, enjoy listening to.
Did you have any control over your costume, or were they like, hey, listen, you're the turtle, that's just what it is?
They sent me a few costumes in the beginning of the show. One was like it was really ironic, but it was a bat. Which I don't think I actually have ever told anybody. The first person, one of the options was a bat, which I'm so happy I didn't end up picking. But then there was a turtle And then there was another costume. It was, they offered me the rhino, which was maybe my second choice, but it still looked very cumbersome. And what I liked about the turtle was that it was the most sleek of all of them. From the pants down, it was just regular pants, leather pants that you could walk and move around in. Whereas some of these outfits, like the llama that Drew Carey was in, I mean, he had 2 legs sticking out of his butt. I mean, it was like, you can't dance in that kind of thing. So I actually had one of the more comfortable costumes. And that's what I was going for, was comfort.
Who in your circle knew you were doing this show? And I asked that because everyone seems to think that my fiance is the kitty. And I'm sitting here wondering, maybe she is. And the rule is you're not allowed to tell anybody. Did your fiance know you were doing this?
She did.
Okay.
Yes, she did. We lived together. She signed an NDA, and she was one of maybe 5 or 6 people on my team that signed the NDA. My agents and my manager, basically. But I mean, that was it. I mean, I was a steel, trap. Otherwise, my mom, I lied to my own mother, my brother, my sister, my family in New York. All of my best friends were hitting me up. I was so nervous about even going on social media for fear that I would accidentally a comment that had something to do with the turtle or the Masked Singer. So I was on high guard, high alert, and it was unbelievably stressful. I can't even imagine. You can't even imagine, like, somebody would just out of the blue be like, "Hey man, are you on the Masked Singer?"
Yeah.
And you literally had to just flip a switch and be like, "Dude, everybody keeps talking about that show. I've never seen it." Just like, act my way out of it. But it was not fun to have to hold on to that for so long.
Are you glad you did it?
I really am. At first I was very skeptical of like how this was going to go. I'm like, do I really want this living on the internet for the rest of my life? It's completely ridiculous and inane, but ultimately it was a real test of like what I feel like I'm capable of vocally and what I was able to achieve. And I think what I proved to a lot of people on the internet who maybe didn't know who I was or skeptical of my vocal ability. And I think it maybe changed a lot of perceptions of me, which is really the main reason I did it. That, and also to sort of cross promote my new album that I'm dropping. It's coming out very soon, as well as the single. So it was overall, it was such a pleasure. And everyone at Fox is just so cool. They were such a great team, and the relationships that have been built there are stronger than ever. So
nice segue into the new stuff, new single, Yours, and the new record coming out soon. Tell me about this new project, Yours.
Yeah, so this first single was called Yours. The second single that I just released yesterday is called Friends. And the single is basically an homage, a love song to all of my best friends, which you don't hear a lot in pop music. You always hear about songs that are intimate, or heartbreak, or a breakup song. But this is just about your homies and what it's like, being around your friends. For me personally, in my life, my friends are as important to me as my blood relatives in many ways. So it's a fun summer bop that people can jam out to. They'll be sick of it by the fall. It's a 2.5-minute banger, and it's just a lot of fun. It's about going out and just getting sauced with your friends and just having a good time. And I feel like it's a morale boost. I feel like everybody kind of needs to hear that right now with everything going on in the world.
And for the rest of the record, what can people expect?
The album, is still yet to be revealed in terms of the title, because I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but we haven't decided when it's coming out. Simply because of this COVID thing. We're still all trying to navigate what's happening with that and when I'm going to tour. But I do anticipate it coming out some point this summer. It's a full-length LP. Most of the songs are actually a little bit more intimate, reflective, and talk about what it's like being in this industry from the time that I was a child, growing up, how it's affected all of my romantic relationships, how it's affected my family relationships, that dynamic, what people, the sacrifices I've had to make, all of the things that I've gotten out of it. And so it's a very, introspective album. It talks a lot about my relationship with my new fiance that I've been with for 8 years. So it's a very personal album. I think people are really dig it. It's more singer-songwriter based, but Friends is a little bit of a get you into the summer and let's get this party going.
Nice. I mean, it makes total sense to kind of pump the brakes on the LP release just because I'm sure you want a tour behind it. You just don't know what you're going to be able to do in terms of touring. So I think it's a smart way to go about releasing stuff kind of slowly and then see what happens.
Well, that's exactly it, Wells. When you put out an album, you want to go out and tour it immediately. And I don't want to be putting it out and then can't tour for another year. So I'm still trying to figure out what to do there. Possibly I'll still, just keep releasing singles from it until I can release the full project,
Speaking of your fiance, you guys have been doing some really funny things on Instagram. Tell everyone about like your skits you're doing on Insta.
Yeah. So Katie and I, Katie does a lot of comedy writing, and the two of us, when we're in a room together, all we do is sit and write jokes. So when we got stuck in this quarantine, we started just writing these sketches based on a couple just being stuck in a house together, driving each other nuts. And I think it was like, it was the perfect timing, and it's relatable. It's really all the same things that everyone does with their partner in a house. From cooking to chewing too loudly to fighting over what show to watch, to being in the bathroom too long, those kind of things. It's a perfect, it's a perfect quarantine couple kind of relationship.
Well, I don't know if anyone told you the mission statement or the idea for this podcast, but I'm just kind of obsessed with like how people got to where they are, understanding that story and that journey. And then also like, what's the blueprint for other people out there trying to be successful in their own right. And dude, you've been doing this for a very, very long time. And you've been doing a lot of different things for a very, very long time. If you're cool with it, I'd love to kind of like go back and find out how it all started. I mean, like you broke into Hollywood in the late 90s with All My Children, but were you doing stuff before that?
I was, but I wouldn't even say Hollywood in the late 90s, because All My Children, while it was television, it was more of a daytime thing, and it was actually filmed in Manhattan at the time. So I hadn't even moved to Hollywood until I was about 16 or 17. But prior to even All My Children, which I think was in 99, you're right, 98 or 99, late 90s. Prior to that, I did a lot of theater, and I was theatrically trained. I did a lot of Broadway, on and off Broadway. And in fact, my first performance was with my folks in a local community theater of about 500 seats in a little town called Irvington, New York. It's a river town that runs up the Hudson River just outside of Manhattan by about 25 minutes. And my folks were just both very musically and theatrically inclined. My mom went to Juilliard. She went to UCLA. My father was a theater major in Rhode Island, and they met in Manhattan doing theater work together. They were both singers and songwriters. My mom was a phenomenal dancer. My dad had a beautiful like Irish tenor voice, and it was a family affair. So when I came along, when they got married and had me, they started just raising me in the musical household that they were. They would sit around the piano, play songs, teach me how to write a song, teach me how to sing. And at an early age, I think that they found that I had relatively good pitch. And so it was maybe just sort of like an Irish trait that was in my blood. And they sort of helped me develop it from an early age. And I quickly became in love with singing, and I had that as something I could always hold on to. And eventually somebody saw me play in a local production at that theater, and they were from the city. And they said, "Hey, we just saw your son. We really love him. Would you mind bringing him down to the city for some actual Broadway auditions?" And that's kind of was the beginning of it all.
Is it something that you set out and wanted to do, or is it the only thing you knew because that's what your parents were doing?
It was a bit of both. I mean, my parents truly loved music and really loved theater. And so, how some families are diehard sports fans where they're watching sports every single night. There's a new game on, which, my father also loved the Yankees and the New York Giants. Some families encourage their kids to get involved with sports at an early age and competitive sports. My family was, involved in getting me into theater and as an extracurricular at a very young age. And they always put an emphasis on education and making sure I was, I had the proper schooling. But, I think every kid needs some sort of guidance in a direction at an early age. And they definitely gave me the push. But I think once I realized that I had some of the natural ability that I was given, that I was able to sort of develop it as I got older. And the more that I saw people returning with positive feedback, the more it motivated me to be like, okay, wow, maybe I should be doing this. This is great. So it was a little bit of both.
Especially in the Broadway world, singing and acting aren't mutually exclusive, but they are separate entities. At that young age, did you like one better than the other? Like, were you like, I really like singing more than the acting thing, or I really like the acting thing, but I can make more money in the singing thing. Like, what was the thought process, and did you like one better than the other?
Well, I think that came later, and certainly the money thing didn't come at that age at all. I wasn't even thinking about money, but I think what was great about what was smart is that my parents, when they introduced me to the theater, I knew it was an all-encompassing thing. So I never thought that they were mutually exclusive. I always thought, oh, if you're a performer, you have to do both. And so I quickly just latched onto the idea that you need to sing and you need to act. And that was sort of the blueprint that I was given. That was sort of that was the world I knew. So when it came to audition for Broadway, I was sort of armed and ready for reading my scene and then sitting there and singing, a song by Oliver Twist, so it was interesting. And it wasn't until years later that I started realizing, my love for popular music. I started falling in love with Prince and Michael Jackson and TLC and Craig David, and started developing a taste for pop R&B music. And then all of a sudden I was like, this is great. I want to do more pop stuff. And I quickly sort of started deviating away from the theater. I think a lot of kids, when they become preteens and teenagers, it's a natural thing for a lot of people, or at least for me. And started just developing other interests. But it's a wild story. And I do now, when I look back, I kind of miss the theater now that I'm a grown up, and I'm looking back at some of the shows that are on Broadway, and I see the amazing talent coming from Broadway, and it's something I would love to do again at some point in my life.
So you're doing community theater outside of New York. You get recruited to come to Manhattan to do Broadway. That goes well. How did you go from doing Broadway to jumping onto All My Children?
Well, you see, my manager was, at the time I was signed to this, she was this, I'll never forget her. She was such a character. She could have been a movie, she could have been in, there could be a biopic about her, but she was like this woman from Long Island that talked like this. I won't say her name because I'm not sure, she might still be living, although I'd be surprised. And she talked like this, and every time she talked to you, she'd say, okay, sing. She was like this real caricature of herself.
Wait, by the way, that's Joey from Friends' manager.
Well, that's who this person was. I mean, she is the personification of what you think about when you think of a old timer manager agent. And so she said, I got this show. It's a soap opera, and I think I know you've been doing the theater thing, but I think you should try this thing. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was just so anxious and wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I just was willing to try anything if it meant I got to perform. So even though there was no music component, it was TV. And when you're 10 years old, you're like, oh, this is cool. I could be on TV. So I went to the audition, and I auditioned like everybody else, and I got the role. And all of a sudden, now I was on a soap opera between the ages of, I think it was 11 or 12 to 13 or 14. And that was sort of like my introduction into television. And then from there, during my time, that 2 or 3 years on that show, I was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards. And that was sort of the beginning of like people calling from LA and saying, hey, we like your kid. Can you bring him out for pilot season for primetime television? So that's kind of like how that pivoted. It was a whole snowball effect, But it started with this lady.
Could someone book her for the next episode? I want to talk to her so bad. So it's not a big chunk of time between doing All My Children and dropping the first record. 2004 was when you released your first album.
I'm terrible with timeline in general, but I do think that yes, it was during All My Children that I was auditioning like every child actor, like every kid that was out there. I was auditioning for shows and Broadway and television in New York. And New York at the time, especially, television and film was limited. It was more of a place you went for theater, whereas LA was more based in, primetime television and cinema. So between soap opera world or time, I auditioned for this boy band. They were doing like a cattle call for like the next new boy band. And you got to remember, this is 1999. So this is like peak NSYNC Backstreet Boy era. And remember, I told you I was developing this taste for pop music and R&B. And so I was like, I had bought a couple of those Backstreet Boys albums, and I was like, all right, cool, maybe I could do a boy band. So I went in and auditioned, and I got cast in a boy band. So now I'm in a boy band while I'm shooting All My Children, going to shooting my scenes after school, then going to rehearsals for 4 hours after All My Children, and being in the city till midnight, coming home, driving back to Westchester, going to school at 8 a.m., and then doing that every day for like 3 years, and rehearsing with this group. Recorded an album. We got signed by Atlantic Records. We sold nearly 1 million albums. This is back when you could literally fart and sell 2 million records. And that was sort of the beginning of the Dream Street era. And we were on tour with Britney Spears. And then we got royally screwed over, like some boy bands do. The boy band thing fell apart, in a matter of 2.5 years. The producers walked away with a ton of money. We saw nothing. Classic boy band story. Yeah. And here I'm now 14 years old. And now I'm at this point where the boy band's over. Again, like there was somebody who was like, we want to develop you maybe as a solo artist. And so then then the story takes another left turn.
You're 12, 13 years old, and you're hustling like a 28-year-old. I just think of like shithead Wells at 12. I was concerned about like making out with Megan Johnson and figuring out a way to smuggle cloves. I can't imagine the crazy amount of hustle. Did you ever get exhausted?
Yes, of course. But it also didn't mean that like it didn't come with my Megan Johnson and my, my cigarette smuggling. Like I had moments like that too, where I was just a normal average teenager where my mom and dad had to kick me in the ass, and say like, hey, like you can't do stuff like that. So it was totally balanced with a lot of just regular everyday stuff. And my parents tried very hard to make sure that, I finished, even up until moving to Los Angeles. I came back after being on a hit show, I came back to New York to graduate with my high school class. So my parents were insisted that I at least got my high school diploma. They were very good at trying to balance my life out with regular stuff. But I did have just this overwhelming passion for wanting to be great and wanting to be somebody at an early age. And I think that sort of superseded all of the other stuff that was going on in my life. And I was willing to give up maybe everyday stuff to have that. And it maybe was a little bit different than most 12-year-olds, but trust me, I would slip and fall down on my face like every 12-year-old kid too. Like it was a mix of both.
Would you say it's more for you, it's more ambition? Like there's many ways of becoming successful, but for me, especially like in the entertainment industry, there's a lot of people who are just, I can't sit still. I got to go, like I have forward momentum. Let's do this thing. And then there's also people who are just like, I love this. It's not really work to me. This is just fun. I love it. I love being on set. I love singing. I love performing. Was there one or the other, or is it combined?
It's totally combined. I think anybody who tells you it's only, I love every part of this is totally lying to your face, because there's so many unglamorous parts of this industry without question. The highs are super high. The lows are really low. The things are really nice that you get. I think ultimately what does drive me is my passion to be great, my validation and respect from peers and people that I admire and respect. People like Thick on like The Masked Singer, like getting his approval on that show meant more to me than just being on that show. So to me, it was always about the drive and the passion to be respected for something that I'm doing well. But, it's not to say that like touring is a grind and sometimes I feel like shit and I just want to like go to bed and not, do a show that night, or I'm sick and I have to do an interview. Look, there's so many things that, but it's part of the deal. It's part of the package. And that's kind of what comes with it. And I think for any profession, there's something that you can complain about, you know, but I try not to, because ultimately my life is pretty sweet.
The irony is not lost on me that like I'm one of those things that you like have to do as a part of this.
I'm trying to avoid going down that road a little too far. I'm actually thoroughly enjoying this interview. If you must know, it's one of the better interviews I've given in a very long time. So hats off to you.
Oh, thanks. There's a lot of great things that come along with being a singer and a songwriter and an actor, but fucking talking to your ass sucks, bro. I wanted to go back to you came along at a time in which things were crazy. You were touring alongside New Kids on the Block and Backstreet Boys. I assume Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. Do you have like crazy stories from that time?
There's one story I can think of that was really interesting. during my years in Dream Street, we opened up for Britney Spears for, I can't really recall how many shows. It may have only been a few shows that we did. And I believe they were in the tri-state area because we were very popular within this like tri-state region. But we did a show it was either like Madison Square Garden, I think it was, or at like Nassau Coliseum. It was a huge, huge venue. It was Britney Spears in the 90s. And Justin Timberlake came backstage and he came into our dressing room because he had heard of this new boy band called Dream Street. And he came back and he shook all of our hands. And, you know, when you're 12, 13, Justin Timberlake, he's like the godlike boy bander, right?
Yeah.
He is the people everyone look up to. And he was very gracious and kind. And he shook all of our hands and he gave us a little piece of advice. I don't even remember what he said. You know, he was just trying to be cool. And I just remember thinking, whoa, this is so awesome. And then he sat and he just kind of watched our performance the entire time, like looking up at us. So that's a little anecdote that I thought was fun. I mean, I just remember thinking about that. And then years later, I would run into him at an award show and he'd be like, man, I always knew you guys. And I'm like, you didn't always know. You're just saying. And I was like, yeah. So I had a moment like that. There's been many moments like that, you know, where I've run into people that I grew up loving or idolizing. And all of a sudden I'm sharing a moment with them and it's just surreal, you know?
Yeah.
And it's crazy now. I feel like I'm at the age where there's young artists coming up that meet me and they're like, hey man, you don't understand. Like that's one of those, that Beautiful Soul album is one of the first records that got me into music. And now they have a budding career. It's just funny to see it all come full circle. So yeah.
When that happens, do you give those young whippersnappers advice?
Now I don't like to be that guy, you know.
Yeah.
I don't be like, you know, what you should do is, because I just feel like that's like big timing people. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
If they ask, I'll give them a little 2 cents, but you know, I just give them a high five and just say, hey man, keep doing you and stay focused and work hard and you're crushing it. You know, I try to keep it light and easy. I don't like to be Mr. Wisdom on the 16-year-old kid. Who wants to hear that when you're 16?
Well, I would imagine you would have liked to have heard that from Justin Timberlake where he was like, hey, listen, this boy band thing, you're going to get screwed over big time, just so you know.
Well, he was one of the boy bands that didn't get screwed over. He ended up making tens of millions of dollars before his solo career. So
okay, so you start the solo career and then what happens?
At that point, I was probably 16 when I started recording Beautiful Soul. I moved out to Los Angeles for my first pilot season. And during my first pilot season, I booked a show, which was originally called Immediate Family, that the W picked up and then changed the name to Summerland. And that would become a big show on the WB. And during that time, my manager, who's still my current manager, was pitching a little demo that I had put together of several songs on a CD. And back when, you know, remember CDs? And she put together like a tape of me performing these solo songs on stage. And because of Dream Street, I had several 300 to 500 people that would show up to my solo show. So it was quite impressive to show a record company, look, this kid's not signing. He's already got like these screaming girls like coming after him. This is a get, like you guys should sign him. They did. It was a smart pitch. It was a wise pitch. The songs were decent. One of the songs was Beautiful Soul, funny enough, that we had recorded, that we found on a publishing service called Taxi. Out of tens of thousands of songs, we find a number one record. The whole thing is unbelievable. And then I moved to LA. I'm shooting the show. We pitch to Hollywood Records. Jay Landers, who I think now works for Sony, he heard it and he was like, I like this kid. He reminds me of like the male Hillary Duff, who was a huge thing at the time. And so they signed me to a record deal. They signed me to a 3-album deal, which at the time was like incredible. You can't get those kind of deals anymore. I signed a record deal. We make the first album, and Beautiful Soul, which was already becoming a hit on Disney radio, which is AM radio, without being signed. They were like, how is this kid on Disney with a number one record on Disney without being signed to a label? They put some money into it on a grand scale, and Beautiful Soul became the song that it is and that it was. And the rest sort of was history at that point. Musically, everything sort of just went from 0 to 60. So within a year, it was like, you know, I was in everybody's living rooms, my high school friends now. Like I was a junior in high school when I moved to LA. All of them were like, hey, bro. I'm like, what do you mean, hey, bro? You used to shove me into a locker. Hey, bro. Like, get out of here. And then, and then I was traveling around the world. I had a worldwide tour. I was going to Australia and Europe and Italy and Japan and seeing places that like just a year ago, I was learning about in a textbook. That period was when I think the name Jesse McCartney went from just like this kid who was in the theater business and a working young actor singer, went from there to sort of household name status. And that was kind of the beginning of what people think of when they think of Jesse McCartney. I think when they think of me, they think of that time.
It seems like you've killed every audition you've ever walked into.
No, there were a lot in between that I completely fell flat on. Trust me. It's not like there was only 3 auditions and I booked every one. There were several thousand auditions, and maybe there was a couple that I was able to squeeze out.
It seems like you've done kind of everything. You did Broadway, you've done scripted, you've done the singer route. Is there anything that you haven't done that you want to do?
I mean, of course, there's more that I haven't done than there is that I've done. In my mind, I mean, I certainly would like to start writing and producing, whether it's short form or long form content. I'm not sure. I mean, I enjoy doing sketch comedy quite a bit. The more that I get used to it and do it, it's something that just feels natural to me, and I'm getting a rhythm for. Especially with Katie, who's a really talented writer. The two of us are a really good team. So I anticipate doing more of that. When I look at things like Rudy Mancuso doing, work, all those like social media guys that are crushing it at Shots and all of these like startup companies, that's something I really want to get more involved with. And I would love to have either an episodic or a film that I've written myself and produced myself. That's something I'd still love to do. So there's a lot still I want to do also behind the camera in terms of production. But it's one foot in front of the other, and it's as they said on The Masked Singer, it's a very slow and steady climb. And I'm just, I'm constantly trying to educate myself and learn new things so that I can get good at them, and I think that's really all it is. It's just like constantly trying to teach yourself new things so that, if you have a little bit of natural ability, you can apply it to the fundamentals of whatever it is that you're doing.
If someone came to you and said, hey, listen, you only get to do one thing for the rest of your life in terms of work, what would you choose?
In terms of work?
Yeah.
It was going to be pizza. But in terms of work, I would say, I would say live performance. I mean, I'll never lose. And it probably comes from my Broadway days, but like nothing will ever come close to the feeling that you get when you perform in front of a live audience, and that immediate reaction and gratification that you get when they do react. You hear it a lot from like some of my favorite comedians like Jerry Seinfeld and Maniscalco and some of the top guys. You hear them say, like, there's just nothing compared. I don't care how successful your TV show is or your movie is. When you perform on a live stage, it's really the ultimate high. And so I think if somebody held a gun to my head and said, you only get to do one thing forever, it would be just to perform music live on stage.
Tell us about Celebrity Watch Party.
Now that's a funny show. It's basically my fiance and I sitting on our couch doing what we've already been doing for the last 2.5 months, which is just binge watching television and cracking jokes and commentating on what we're watching, which is perfect for us because we get to riff, we get to make fun of each other, make fun of what we're watching, and we get to sit our ass on the couch. So it's perfect.
Do you ever do Bachelor in Paradise? Because I need to watch it if you do.
See, is that like a reality show?
Yes, it's beautiful. So when it comes back, I need you to do it for that show. Yeah.
Oh, well, Katie got me into 90 Day Fiance.
Oh man, before the 90 days?
Before the 90 days.
Lana's real, bro.
Dude, but I tuned in for season 4. I didn't watch the first 3 seasons. I turned in for like the big dude Ed.
Yeah.
And the Filipino girl Rose or whatever.
Yeah.
Man, it's just the most incredible television. It's riveting stuff. But so why is it before the 90 days? What's after the 90 days? Do they actually do another show after the 90 days?
Yeah, I think like there's another show. I haven't seen it either, but Sarah and I were talking about this. Like, what is the next show? So I guess the next show is like, it's actually them like together, like they're married or whatever. Like that 90 days of
the courting is the most fun because it's like, what do I do with this guy? And he's like, what do I do? She doesn't love me. She just wants she wants a card. She wants a visa or a green card. That's to me the best part of the show. Anyway, yeah, dude, it's I don't watch a lot of reality shows, but that is one she's turned me on to, and we're thoroughly enjoying it.
Was your mind blown when Lana was real? That's when I was like, oh my God, David's the girlfriend that he's been talking to on chat forever.
Oh, you know what? I didn't get that far, dude. Is she really?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
My mind is blown, though, right now. The last episode I saw, I got distracted with Defending Jacob, which is a great show.
Mm-hmm.
But, dude, the last one I saw is that he went there. He sat at the table with the rose and the champagne, just the saddest display of, denial. And then he goes home and it's like his friend picks him up. So you're telling me that girl is real?
He goes back a 5th time. You got to go. I'm going to let you go now because you have to go watch the rest of this because it's going to get crazy. And then there's also Usman, who's Soulja Boy, but the Nigerian version. The show's great. Hey, before I let you go, do you have time to do rapid fire questions?
Of course.
Okay. I love how we just went on a really weird detour into 90 Day Fiancé. Rapid fire questions with Jesse McCartney. Number 1, favorite pizza topping.
Favorite pizza topping, pepperoni.
Favorite book.
Kitchen Confidential.
Nice. Biggest mentor.
I'm going to say Will Smith.
Who was your first kiss?
A girl named Sam, 7th grade.
Celebrity you get mistaken for?
Frankie Muniz.
Really?
I get Frankie Muniz from time to time, which is funny. I've also gotten Aaron Carter, and I've also gotten Jesse McCartney,
one's right.
Right.
Who would you call to get you out of jail?
I guess Katie.
That's good. It depends on what you do, I suppose.
Exactly.
One thing that's always in your fridge.
Fresh fruit.
Do you believe in soulmates?
Yeah.
Who was your celebrity crush growing up?
Jennifer Love Hewitt.
I like that one. Do you have a nickname? And if you do, what is it?
My friends just call me Jess or J-Mac or Jay.
I like J-Mac.
A long time ago, I left a voicemail that said, hey, it's JM on the line. So a lot of them will, when I was 15, I thought I was cool, not revealing my name on my voicemail.
Yeah.
So I'd say, hey, it's JM on the line. Leave a message after the beep. So my friends never let that go. So every time they come over, they're like, JM on the line. What's up? Old school, friends taking the piss out of me.
Yeah. Well, I've had Jay on the line for the past hours. Thank you so much for being on the WellsCast. Your story is crazy and bonkers, and it just seems like everything you touch, you kill. So congratulations. Everyone out there, make sure you go listen to yours and friends and keep on the lookout for the new record, which is untitled, but will be titled soon. I can't wait to hear it, man.
I appreciate it, Wells. And genuinely, man, really great interview. Probably one of the best I've done in many years. So kudos.
I appreciate that. Hey, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about or promote before I let you go?
No. If you leave me on here longer, we're going to keep talking about 90 Day Fiancé. So I'm going to go take off and watch the rest of it.
Go do it, man. Hey, great to meet you, and thank you so much.
You too. Cheers, Wells. Appreciate it, man.
Man, he just seemed like every audition he went to, he booked, And you can see, it's not surprising. He's good looking, obviously, and he's just super talented. Not to keep on bringing Sarah into the show, but she's the most talented person I'm around all the time, And she's just good at everything. Broadway kills it, singing kills it, acting kills it, being hot kills it. That's what that guy is, which is amazing. But he hustles, and that's the thing that I think that a lot of people forget about when it comes to success is that you can't put a price tag on hustle, man. That's how you get ahead. You just crush and kill and crush and kill and keep on going, And then when you're old and decrepit, you got a big old bank account to sit back on and chill. All right, guys, that does it for the WellsCast this week. That was a fun episode. Jesse's super cool, dude. Loving this new tune, friends. Go stream it or buy it or whatever the hell you do with music these days. And don't forget to rate and review the app and Play stores. Comment saying how great I am. If you have bad comments, just don't do it. Okay? That'd be cool. All right, guys. Later.
You're my favorite thing to be